I'm jumping on. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining us today on Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. If you are new to this podcast, make sure you follow, like, subscribe, and share. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us for this episode of Her Version. Listen, you asked for it and we answered. Today, we are talking to the mothers of the world, stay-at-home moms, working moms, entrepreneur moms, moms with one child, and moms with 6 children, or however many little rugrats you got running around. The question is, how to stay sane as a mom and then still do all of the things. I have 2 amazing women with me today. I have Miss Erika Hull and Dr. Cheryl Jackson. These 2 ladies are here to talk about some amazing solutions to everyday struggles that so many mothers encounter in their life. We are covering everything from how to stay focused when we are overwhelmed, how to feel more satisfied in our daily life, and actual tools we can use to get organized in our mind, our home, and our workspace. These ladies have created some amazing tools to create a real flow and sense of certainty in our lives, which we all need. Let's listen in as they unveil these secrets. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you, Sabrina. Glad to be here.
Yes, we have Miss Jamie in the house. Jamie is actually from Texas. She says hello.
Hey, I'm a Texas gal.
Oh, we love Texas.
Nice. Well, Cheryl says hello, Jamie. Ladies, thanks for being here. How are you?
So good.
So good.
So good.
I can't hear you, girl.
Yes.
I'm looking for Erika. I can't hear you.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I can hear Erika.
Hang on.
I can hear her. Can you hear me, Sabrina?
Let me see. I can hear you, Cheryl.
Oh.
Say something,
Can you hear me
Erika.
now?
Let me see.
Hello, hello, hello.
Okay, there she is.
Hey,
okay.
So listen, I'm so grateful to have you guys here. Everything that you guys are doing, you ladies are doing in this space is phenomenal. And I'd love to just jump right in if you don't mind it.
Let's do it.
There's so much to cover. And I want to make sure I pull all the juicy goodness out of you guys. So first of all, I want to kind of know who you are. Who are you? What do you stand for? And what's your mission every day?
That is juicy.
Who's going to go first? I am. That's a big question. Wait, okay. Who are we? What? Whoa. That is like impactful. Okay, let's go. All right. I am Erika Hull. Sorry, my hair is like, see these curls, y'all? I know they're never supposed to be perfect, but sometimes they feel like they're out of control. All right. I am the mom of 6 children, 5 still living, ages 21 down to 5. I spent a good portion of my career in financial development for one of the largest nonprofit organizations on the East Coast. And my entire career I've always spent as an entrepreneur. As a matter of fact, I had my first business when I was in the about 3rd or 4th grade. A friend of mine, Luana, if you're watching, Luana Ritchie, we did it in the beginning. We had a friendship bracelet business. We earned enough money to buy the crossing patrol, or do you know what I'm talking about? The crossing guards. We did that in 5th grade and they needed new vests. And so we earned enough money to purchase the best vest for them that year. It was really cool. So it's been in my blood. It's been a part of what I do. But I learned early on that it took a lot of organization and it just happened to be, again, in my blood. So I thrived in that area. It's so funny because when I met Dr. C, as I call her, and she'll introduce herself, when I met her in 2019, that's actually what we connected on. She wrote this amazing book called family business, when business is family and family is business. And she was presenting a couple concepts in it. And I was sitting in the front row and I was like, I had my planner, which is my company, Better Over Perfect. And I'm looking and I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm fucking smart. There's a doctor standing in front of me saying that all of these things that I've been teaching women for 5 years, almost 6 years at that time when I met her, is like college level shit.
Yeah.
I was blown away because, again, I thought myself very low. And I was just on Sabrina's podcast earlier. We were talking about a whole nother subject. I didn't think very highly of myself when I met her. And so it was really cool. We connected on this topic that we're going to talk about today, is how we organize our time, our life, and how we can just really thrive, because chaos is always going to happen. So we've got to be prepared for it. So a little bit about me, not too much, but I want to turn it over to my business partner, and now one of my bestest friends in the world, Dr. C.
Well, Erika is definitely the jazzy one of the group. And I feel like I'm much more, I always thought I was spicy until I met Erika. We could complement each other well. But I'm Cheryl Jackson, an industrial psychologist by trade, and I spent about 15 years in the corporate arena, really helping primarily Fortune 50 organizations, big box retailers, manufacturers, healthcare organizations, helping them thrive through organizational effectiveness, and org design. And that's really giving employees in the organization clarity on what's my role, how do I do it, what am I evaluated on, how are you measuring these concepts? And we don't realize how much clarity really makes a difference in how we feel about the work that we do, how confident we are going into that, and how we know what's important and what's not important. And so I thought, if organizations, if the biggest companies in the world think that this is important, then it's probably important for small businesses. And then I said, you know what? Running a business and running a family are very similar. My boys are 6 and 4. And so that was kind of new for me. And I thought the same things that I'm applying to organizations, I can apply to my children, changing the culture in my home, setting boundaries, performance management, managing expectations. So that's where the book came from. And that's where we teach a lot of the concepts come from this idea of, and the concepts around industrial organizational psychology and positive psychology. And I stand for engagement. I want people to be so engaged in their lives that they love what they do and do what they love. And I want to help people live better so that they can work better and ultimately lead others to that better place.
Absolutely. I love that. So what do you two do? What are your companies?
Well, you can kind of see, like, she already had Better in her stuff, and I had a company called Better Over Perfect, and I was teaching those principles in essence to who I really thought I was only. And so, we were stay-at-home moms or women who were working from home, but we were just kind of grouping ourselves into this category together of, like, I don't know, less than. Mm-hmm. Like, because we ran our businesses from home, or because we were taking care of 6 kids and basically running a corporation at that point, because there's all your different departments, we're not really like. And so it was just such a cool thing that 2 women, 2 different realms of life, 2 different education levels, 2 different economic classes, 2 different areas of the country. She's in Texas. I was born there, but I was up in Ohio, or I am, that we were talking about such similar things.
And we're talking about similar ways. It's so important. And these are topics that everyone, in the organizations, I just got off of a call of our women's resource group, and they were all saying the exact same thing: work-life balance. And what does it look like to work from home and have this role interruption all day long? And so our business is the corner office, and that's where our mission is really to level the playing field for women in business, to really change the landscape. So often we find ourselves in a man's world, right? A world built by and for men. And that's not negative in any sense. It's reality. Our foundation in America was men building businesses for men to work, and they all had wives at home that would get the children ready, take them to doctor's appointments, tend the garden, cook dinner, and be flawless the whole time. And now we've transitioned to a place we're trying to enter the workforce that's still designed very much for men. Our working hours are now 8 to 5. Who's supposed to get that dinner on the table? We've moved out of the cities, and so we're driving in and we're commuting an hour or more each way, yet the burden still very much falls on us. But the workforce has not changed. Society has not changed to say it's okay to cut off at 3 so you can get this stuff done. And if you need to work a couple of hours in the evening because that's when you're back at your prime, then work a couple of hours in the evening. Come in after your children get on the school bus. We are still supposed to fit our entire multi-vocations into the workforce designed for men. And so that's where the corner office comes in. We're trying to change from a societal level and a workforce level that says organizations, you've got to adapt to the new way of working. No longer is there a norm that says that we work this way and we'll allow you to work in here. We need to take that back and say, we now make up the majority of the workforce, primary parents, not just women, but primary parents, those with children with disabilities, those taking care of elderly parents, those that need a non-traditional work arrangement. We make up the majority of the workforce, and it's time for the workforce to adapt if they want to keep us. And the other side of the business is that which Erika started, Better Over Perfect, which is our community of women where we teach and we educate and we provide resources so that we can tackle it one woman at a time, while we're also trying to address it from the systemic level, which is organizations that have got to change. They've got to set new expectations and start to transform. I talk about, when you're going into an apartment and you have your partner coming in and you're so excited and you're like, come here. Look at this. This is your drawer or your side of the drawer. That's what we've done to minorities, to women, to working parents. We've said, come on in. But here we've carved out this tiny little arrangement for you. And it's time for us to redecorate the entire apartment. This is now our collective home. And that's what the corner office is all about.
That's awesome. Anything to add, Erika?
Oh my gosh, she does it so well, doesn't she?
I'm so fired up.
She does. It's just been such an amazing experience thus far to see how welcoming many people have been to the idea and concept, because what we are doing is not traditional. It does shake up what most people have become acquainted to, and they're just accustomed to it. But we really need to take a step back and say, what are my expectations? And why are these my expectations? And then hold our own individual selves accountable to those so that we can have culture and intention in everything we do. And we really do want to create that environment that adapts, that says, what are your needs? And let's figure out how we can still do life together on an equal platform. And it's not hard. It's not this difficult thing, except for those who are unwilling to let go of power. Honestly, and that goes back to the previous conversation. It all goes back to that part of humanity. So adoption is the only way that we can do this. We've been accommodated. We've been making accommodations for a long time. Accommodations allow you to go back to a previous existence once it's not needed. So once you're not there, they're going to go back to the way they want it in the first place. Adaption provides no ability to change. Once you make that change, there isn't anything that existed before. So you can't go backwards. You can only move forwards.
Absolutely.
And so we start incorporating adaption into our life, then we can start seeing true change. And then we can start seeing not just our personal lives change, but our business lives change, and systemic change can happen that way. Many people want to really start at the top down, though we're going to address corporations, but we're talking about above that, right? Above corporations is the systems and the government and all those entities that are up there. And to make change up there seems impossible. And really the only way to do it is really adaption this way. And then they're going to catch on because they want to do business. They want to keep things afloat. They want life to go on in this fabulous way of, or at least, what we've kind of referred to as the American way. I hate that saying, but basically, right? Where we're successful, we're meeting the needs, such. But the only way to really do that is to come together and do it together, and that is real adaptation, right? We did it in the beginning, we got away from it. We could go for probably 5 hours on the history of that. We talk about it and write about it a lot, but this is not that platform. But we've become built to do this, and we just need to kind of shake it up and say, all right, no more. We want to be included, and we're going to not just demand it, we're going to make it happen. So
absolutely.
But I'm excited to talk about what we're talking about today. In our individual lives. Yeah.
I want to ask before we continue going. One of you guys mentioned work-life balance. What's each of yours opinion on work-life balance?
Erika's version is more colorful than mine.
You want me to say it? I will say it because it is a philosophy at the corner office. So we have a couple of philosophies. NAW is one of them. We can talk about that at some point. It's called No Apology Warranted. The next one is called Balance is Bullshit. And because what we've been trained to think is balance, it doesn't actually exist. It's the same as perfection, right? So I kind of say it a little bit more colorfully. Cheryl has the same theme of it, but it's in essence is what you're trying to create.
Well, Erika's cutting out a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in. Erika, you're very spotty. I'm so sorry. But we talk about this idea that there is no one balance, right? We talk about this elusive balance. Where is it? How can I find that? And we also talk about work-life balance. And in reality, work is your life. I've always struggled with that. And I thought if I went to work for 8 hours and I was home for 8 hours and I slept for 8 hours, is that the perfect balance? And I was always trying to seek that. And it gets very complicated. And what about my hobbies and things that I do on the side? And what about my children? When is self in there? And so we created this life balance trifecta. And what this is really all about is where your energy is spent. So you have your occupation or your vocations, things that you do for money, things that you, if it's not for money, it's for others in terms of output. And then you have others. So how am I giving to my children, my family, my friends, when I'm giving advice? And then there's self, this is where it's finally coming back in. I'm filling up a little bit. And, if you're looking at balance, that should be half and the other two, a quarter each, but we'll leave it at the triangle for simplicity. And so many times we think, I'm with my family, I'm with my friends, I'm at a girls' night out. And in reality, we are pouring out. So how many times are you with your children and you feel rested and rejuvenated? Not a lot for me. That's me giving and giving and giving. And sometimes they go on a girls' night and they're venting and I'm stressed. Maybe they just got a divorce or they're going through depression. That is energy releasing. That's a lot of energy output. But we think, I just had this wonderful vacation with my family, or I just had this girls' night. Why am I not recharged? And that's because you weren't actually in the self side. You were in the other side, or you're doing a hobby, which you're checking email and marketing that. And that's a lot of energy output for a product that's not really self. People think, that's your hobby, you're doing it for fun, but there are a lot of parts of your hobby that aren't fun and their energy output. And so we really need to understand what each of those components are and make sure if we're taking time for ourselves, that it's actually self. It's a bubble bath that you're enjoying, not thinking about work or thinking about your children, because your brain will be like, that was never self time. Yes. And so this balance is very elusive, and it's interesting that we talk about it so easily when it's not a concept that's easy at all.
I love that. Absolutely. Anything to add, Erika? Are you back?
You look better.
Do I look better? Okay. We just got Wi-Fi here, but it's been great all day. New office, guys. Like literally we just opened an office. So I love everything. We talk about this together. We teach it all the time. Is whether we're individual or we're talking to a business, because it's so important to understand in our lives. Because if you're trying to go after something that doesn't exist, you're going to constantly feel like you're failing. And so if you're going to try to figure out, oh, I need balance in my life, and you never find it, then you never actually feel success, no matter what's happened in your life, right?
Yeah.
So much of how we evaluate and judge our lives is based off of this concept. Also, balance doesn't give availability to recognize, like Cheryl said, all of our vocations. It doesn't let us recognize anything, because when we think of balance, you're thinking of balance, a teeter-totter. You're only thinking two sides, right? Even the woman who's holding the scales, there's only two sides. So what? There's only two sides of me? Can I only balance my family and my work, or am I supposed to balance myself and this? Like, there's only two options. Well, that's not our lives. Our lives are multivocational.
Exactly.
And so when we let go of that concept, and we kind of adapt more of a triangle, which can include all of our vocations, and start acknowledging it, then we can actually feel that sense of balance, because that's what we're after, right? We live in a state of overwhelm. We want a sense of balance. These aren't actually places or things. They're feelings that we get wrapped up in. So it also helps us establish our emotional tone and stability too. So it's really awesome.
Definitely. And when it comes to work-life balance, I think a lot of times the reason that that's such a cliche is because as humans, but we're speaking to mothers right now, there's a sense of overwhelm. There's just so much, like you said, that we're supposed to be keeping track of. So, as an expert, in your field, what advice do you give to women who are just feeling this sense of like, there's just so much, there's so many things? What's the advice? What do we do?
Wow. The number one thing is stop. Don't say anything. Don't say yes to anything else yet. Definitely don't take on anything until you can at least evaluate where you're at. But stop and pause is definitely my very first advice. Pause for sure. And then we take them through the well-rounded foundation. That's where anybody from college student to CEO, if they need to figure out what's going on in life, they feel overwhelmed, whatever that's going on, we start there. That is the foundation of what we teach. And this establishes multitude of things, from their life season profile to what their vocations are, what their expectations, culture, and intentions are in each of those, as well as the basis of what they're going to schedule and how they're going to evaluate their life. And then we get to move them forward. But it's really, Dr. C, she's shaking her head. It's really a phenomenal place to start, because it gives you a framework and a foundation that you can always come back to. So you don't, because you are capable of doing this, right? Like, you don't need somebody else. You don't need that $2,000 thing. Like, you are capable, and you have the patterns in your life to succeed. We can just help you accentuate and acknowledge them.
Yeah. So in organizations, what we do is we take a look at your job description, right? We would say, what are you supposed to be doing here? What are your primary and key responsibilities? And then how do those align to the organization's strategic vision and initiatives and objectives? So what's most important? And if we have a new project come in that was unexpected, then we start crossing things off that list, or we find out who else can do this job. And so on an individual level, we can do the same thing. And that's what the life season profile is all about. That says, what are the realities of my life right now? What all is going on? Which is one thing organizations do not always consider. What is going on in your life as an individual? And when it's an engagement perspective, we have to include the entire individual. Like it or not, we can't shut it off at the door. So to take a look at what's going on in your life, and then if you were getting evaluated today, what's most important? And if you're looking at a year from now and you're getting evaluated, what is going to be the decision maker as to whether or not you got a needs improvement, or excel, or get that merit increase? And so the same thing with our lives. We need to take a look back and say, what do I want to be known for? What do I want to be remembered for? And what's most important in my life right now? Which of those balls that I'm juggling are glass, and which ones are rubber? You've probably heard that quote before, or that theme before. Which ones can I drop or set down, and what can I delegate? So we actually encourage individuals, women to outline what are my key responsibilities here? What are those most important vocations that I can't let the ball drop on? And we call those bare bones, or better bare bones of, I need to keep these balls moving. These are the most important things in my life, and actually schedule them out. And when you schedule those out, it helps you identify specific times to do those. And then when you're engaging in other vocations, even like self-care and health, you can feel confident that you're doing okay because this time is scheduled in. You have time for all your other vocations. So often overwhelm comes because we're thinking about this moment right here and look at all the things I have to do. And we try to do them all right now, or forget to look and say, what can I put off until tomorrow? What is super critical right now? So in organizations, we would outline those and look at risk factors, right? What's high priority? What's most aligned with our ultimate objectives, and which ones have to be done before something else can be done? What are the risks if we drop this? And we need to do that in our own lives and establish, what happens if I don't spend time with my kids right now? What happens if I don't pay the bills today? What happens if I don't hang out with my friends? Or what happens if I don't get this specific job or this project done? What happens if I don't remodel this area that I need to? Is the roof actually going to cave in, or is it a nice to have? And evaluating yourself on those and then identifying what you can put off really helps create that margin in your life that says, I have a little bit of space to think. I'm not rushing from one thing to the next, and I never get ahead.
Absolutely. And then when you're saying that, what does that look like? Are they writing lists? Is this Post-it notes?
Well, let me I'll show you mine. There's a workbook, you can get it for free, but it really helps when you do the workshop. And so starting in November, we will have actual workshops live and in person, and then other people can join virtually. But I mean, we even gave you an example. Like I bared my soul to the world on these vocations because they were mine at some point. But yeah, we have the entire workbook where it helps build from the ground up, as well as a few resources through blog posts that you can read. But it works better when you take the workshop, of course.
We do it together. We
do it together.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
We practice this.
It's a process that we use for ourselves in our lives. We use it for our business. We use it to help other people. And anytime something's happening, we're like, okay, let's reevaluate. What's our life season profile? What is the hang up? Because too many times we think that everything is a fire, which it's not. We think that it's not okay to have some things just be manageable. Like this gives you permission to be like, it's okay if I only sweep my floors once a week. Like it's cool. Like as long as the laundry's clean and folded during this time, that's manageable. That's all I'm taking on because I'm writing a book, like, or I'm had a new baby. Like you can really start to establish this level of manageability. And so what that gives you is kind of like autopilot mode without the guilt and without thinking you're dropping the ball, because you're still staying on top of it. You're still covering your bare bones, and you're not injecting this nervousness of everything's a fire. Everything has to be perfect. It's got to be this way. I've got to do it this way. These shoulds and coulds and all of this that's put on top of us. It eliminates that. You let it go. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is what happiness feels. Wow. And it's not, you don't have to be like us doing a million freaking things. Okay. That's not the point of this. You could be very happy doing whatever it is you're doing in life, and this still bring you a huge sense of joy. It allows you to exit overwhelm and just enter that piece of purpose that what I'm doing is intentional. Right. And we're never taught to do that in our lives.
Yeah.
We're never taught how to do this.
Yeah.
And when we don't lay that out specifically, Sabrina, what happens when something hits us in our life out of nowhere? We have sick children, or we get sick, terminal or not terminal, some kind of significant problem that brings us down, or the water heater goes out, all of these things that kind of throw off our schedule. What happens if we're not intentional about this? We go into autopilot and do those things that we've always done. I bury myself in my work. That was a habit for me. And so I multiple jobs, and you're full-time and part-time, and I'll just do more of that instead of really paying attention to what's most critical. Or if you're the cleaning type, you may just clean everything inside and everything is perfect. And you're like, I've got to stay busy. I have to distract myself from what's going on. And all that does is drive you further into that state of panic and overwhelm. And you're not getting ahead because you're not focused on the right things. So when you start building this habit of what's most important, let me continue to reflect on that and build time for it, you can go into autopilot in the right way, and really focus on those things that are moving the needle in your life. And you can gain some of that relief that you're looking for. You're working just as hard, but you're working smartly in the right way. And maybe you can even stop working quite so hard.
That's awesome. I think it's also, you kind of mentioned, I guess an entrepreneur like, yourself or myself versus, a regular mom, or however you want to put that. But this is the way that I view it. I remember a time in my life where there was no baby and there was no entrepreneurship. And I still felt a serious sense of overwhelm. So it doesn't really matter where you are. This is something that everybody needs, because even if we're taking on more and more and more, there's still, it doesn't matter where you are or what level you're at. There's still this sense of, not knowing which direction or which focus to actually go on. So I love everything you're saying.
Well, it normalizes, doesn't it? So
yeah.
I remember the days when I thought I was so busy and I was completely overwhelmed. But with each step along the way, that's why we have babies when they're small and babies, right?
Yeah.
We don't naturally get it. And some of us do. We get a teenager or an older child, but children are intended to grow up so you can learn along the way. And then it normalizes each step. And so as we get busier and busier, that becomes normal. And it can be a negative spiral, but it can also be a very positive spiral. It doesn't feel like a big jump, and you're building small habits along the way, each time normalizing. So this feels like the way I've always done it. And we can really build on that. It doesn't have to be such a negative spiral. It can be a very positive spiral as well.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So speaking of, I guess we're on the subject of time management now. Obviously this is a huge passion as far as the better over perfect. What do you guys call it? Do you guys call it a calendar or planner? How do you guys?
So we teach the better method, which is all of these concepts pulled together with the well-rounded foundation kind of kicking it off. We do sell, of course, merchandise and products. We created the Better Method Planner, and it incorporates really how our minds think, which are really cool, and quite a few ingenious things that I've incorporated over the past 25 years with this many kids and running multiple businesses. And so I was like, hey, this doesn't exist. And I know that this makes life flow a lot better. And so I just took it out on the market, started testing it. It was prior to meeting Cheryl. And when I met her, literally on her screen, she was showing her calendar, and I was like, oh my gosh, not only are we kind of mentally drawing it out the same way, but we're teaching it in the same manner. We were using similar words. So it just was like this really awesome marriage of sense, that thing. But yeah, so the Better Method Planner is available. The 2022 calendars are getting ready to go up this week. So but it's a system that adapts to you. So other than the few yearly things or the monthly calendar, everything is undated so that you can really adapt it to your life. I personally teach the disc-bound system so that you can move pages around and adapt. I love that feature. It's huge in my life, and needing multiple notebooks, but not needing to carry them. So there's some things that we go through and kind of give some tips and tricks as we're teaching the better method of how we're utilizing tools. But I wouldn't say we just go out and teach a planner. Do you know what I mean? There's people that do that, and that's fine. and here's what I'm teaching. We really have a method that you can apply to your life. It includes the Better Self formula, which is one that we are very, very passionate about. So it includes a whole bunch of different aspects that aren't included in necessarily time management that you would get out of a planning system or even a planning workshop, which that's the part that I love. We look at the whole part of you in it and make sure that you're incorporated into that part of it.
Beautiful.
And
Go ahead.
One of the keys about time management is to remember that it's yours. And so many productivity experts will come in and make suggestions about ideal weeks and 4-hour blocks of time and doing one thing. And the reality is that multivocational women, we don't always have 4-hour chunks of time. We can't always wake up 2 hours before our children. We sometimes have to work at midnight. We don't have someone cooking meals. We have role interruption constantly. So whatever your plan is, your approach is, know that it's okay to incorporate all those things. You should, and you shouldn't try to fit it into someone else's approach. We do like the chunking concept, but perhaps something that lists what can I do with my children and sit on the couch, and what do I need brain power to do. I have lists. This takes 5 minutes to do if I just have 10 minutes or 30 minutes between meetings. And these are things I need to do at midnight because I need my full brain power. And it's okay to wake up at 5:30 one morning and 8 o'clock the next morning. That is okay. And a lot of women, we try to fit our lives into someone else's productivity techniques, and it doesn't work. And then we're wondering what we're doing wrong. So I just want to give you encouragement that when it comes to time management, you have got to do what works best for you and pick and choose what you want to do. Take that theme and build on it. I have 2-hour chunks of time, and not 4, but 2. And then 30-minute, what can I do in 30-minute, and adapt it to what works. That's the only way we can do it, because these were not designed for us. We're trying to change that.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the thing. That's one of the things that we both noticed was as we were picking up resources that were supposed to help us, right? These tools or systems are built to try to help us, but they were designed by people who weren't acknowledging all the vocations that we're in, or it was designed for traditional thought process of 8 hours at work, 8 hours of rest, 8 hours of sleep. And we're like, wait a second, I don't go to bed. Like my day doesn't end at 8 p.m., but my system is ending at 8 p.m. What? Or, even people that we looked up to, and they were coming up with, these, you should do these things and it's going to change your life. And I was like, I can't do that. And so now my life isn't going to change. And that's just not true. And so really what we love to do is teach you your patterns that you are already doing really well in your life. And let's adapt them, right, to what you want to get to. And then you have what you're capable of doing. These things are just tools. And that's why we design the things that we do, and we talk about it, because we want you to really see that you are capable of doing whatever it is that you purpose. You have the abilities within you, but sometimes we just need to kind of have somebody direct us, right? We need to go, okay, give me a formula, right? We love formulas. I love formulas, but a formula should work for anybody, right? And so that's what we concentrate on, is making sure this can work for anybody.
That's awesome. Very cool. In your opinion, what would be the 3 most important areas of a woman's life that should be organized in order to be more productive?
I can't wait to hear Cheryl's answer on this.
The 3 areas of life. Well, I am all about the life balance trifecta. So I have work and then others and self. So that might not be the direction that you were going, but I find that's really important to me right now. And I do think that it changes, and I'm very much trying to adjust, not so much work. I could work all day, every day. My son says, what do you do for fun? And I'm like, I work for fun. And I'm like, I've got to have a little bit more balance, but just knowing what each category is and consciously making effort to spend more time in other areas, and being consciously aware of when I'm engaging in those areas. So, that would be my advice. And those are my 3 areas that I really try to keep very organized. And with with others, I'm focused on my family right now. I had to say, relationships with friends and such just need to go on hold because this is my season of being a better mom, more engaged with my boys, because I have let that slide through quarantine and writing the book and starting the businesses. And my husband needs to be on that list as well, but I'll start with my boys. I told him, I said, if we don't need to speak to each other until the end of the year, because we're just gonna be snapping. I mean, it's so short, but we have gotten to a point where we're spending more time together, and that really feels good to start getting that under control. You got to have your family relationships in order.
For sure. Anything to add, Erika?
Honestly, I think that it varies from person to person. When we kind of group those things into work, maybe your work is your home management right now. Maybe your work is your motherhood. Like that's what your thing is. So I love looking at those categories and then just pulling one of my vocations from it. So others, like Cheryl said, her others category is her family and her children, right? So maybe sometime your others category is your marriage. And so you can vary those three, but self is always constant. It's never allowed to be removed, but your work and others category are where your other vocations lie. And so that's why we love the trifectas, because self never gets off of it. But the work and others categories are different vocations. Yeah. Your others category could be your external, friendship, or maybe you're dating, or maybe it's you're making new work connection, like outside networking. Maybe that's your others category, and you can vary it so that as long as you have something in all three, you can really feel that fullness, and you're taking care of yourself. You're enjoying things that you're doing, because we do encourage that your work category are like, we love our work. That's why we work all the time, because we love it. We spent hours and hours writing the book because it was fun. Like, it was a hard topic, but there was parts that was fun, right? We do these things because we've learned that if we're going to do it, we're going to do something we enjoy. And then others, it's the way you can give back. And so it just really creates, again, a formula that you can apply to your life no matter where you're at, no matter what you have going on. It applies to everybody.
What's your opinion on that, as far as, because I'm very similar as far as working. My fiance says often that I need to work on having more fun and more joy in my life. But his view of fun and joy is different than my view of fun and joy. He views fun as the traditional fun, like, let's go to the beach, let's play Frisbee, let's go for a walk. And not that I don't find those things fun, but I also view my work and creativity and all of the things that are being pulled out of my brain, and I'm actually like throwing them down and massaging them, and they're becoming something beautiful. That's super fun for me. So, what's your viewpoint with things that clash like that inside a family dynamic?
Ooh, I want to kick this one off. So here's where this comes into play. So each person, I just going to kind of bring it up to the screen. And so you list out your vocations, and then you list out what those categories, your intentions, your culture. And you'll see in mine, I knew I needed it. So one of my vocations was fun downtime, and one of my vocations at the time was creative practices, because I had given up the same thing. And so we were able to then come and say,
sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. So he was able to understand what I meant when I was like, this is what I like to do for fun. He also could understand why I was so passionate about my work, because it included these things. Mm-hmm. And then, in particular, like, we're talking about a relationship, right? So then you can start going, okay, well, in our marriage, so my marriage is a vocation because it's one of my main relationships, right? I need time and skill goes into this, right? That's what we define vocations are. And so we could start going, okay, well, the fun things that you think are fun and things that I think are fun. Maybe those are things we can do together. But these things, like I enjoy working, that's my fun time. And so we started to understand what we were talking about. It gave us a common language. And it also kind of, we can go and say, these are my main vocations right now. The rest of them have to go like, I love you, sweetheart, but right now we don't have time for dates. And so while we're shopping for one of our customers or building out a design for a client, or we are traveling or opening up an office or speaking for the corner office, we're just going to have to do things together and that be our date right now. Right. And so then it eliminated the arguments, eliminated us going, or you always do this, or, it just gave us a common language. And it was so cool. Personally, how I experienced it was just really cool. And we can always go back to it. We can always go back. Okay, let's reevaluate how we're spending our time or what we like. Your fun downtime doesn't have to be the same things all the time. You can be like, hey, I tried photography, liked it, don't love it, want to try a new thing, right? And so you're more intentional with those things too.
And I think the language that we use matters. So using the term fun, that's different for everyone. My son and I, we switched over to Chase and mommy time. And this is, we call it Clubhouse too. We kind of go back and forth because that's dedicated time for the two of us. So I was really struck kind of in the middle of quarantine when we were getting the business up and running, and we were so jazzed up about what was ahead. And Eric and I can talk for hours about it, as you can imagine. You probably got a glimpse of that. And so I would go, I was not working a full-time job yet. And so I was always working. And my son started saying, you're always working, you're always working. And then we would say, we can't go to Great Wolf Lodge because that takes a lot of money and only daddy's working. And he's like, he was very confused about work and a job and work for pay. And we started talking about being an entrepreneur and how when you're an entrepreneur, you're doing it a lot of times because you just love it. And so when I did get my full-time job, I said, mom has to go to work. And he was trying to explain this to him. And I was like, well, my job is where I make money. And my work is when I get to do what I love. And he said, well, do you love me? And I was so struck by that because here I am telling him that I'm going to work all the time because I'm doing what I love. And yet I was not spending as much time with him. And he recognized that. I was always saying, I have to go to work. I'm going to work. I'd put him to bed. Mom has to go back to work. Mom needs to work. And that's all he was hearing. And now he was attaching, I'm doing what I love, work, and not spending time with him. And so I started to change my language. I started making sure I had dedicated time with him, that this is my time I'm spending with you. And now mom has to go to her job, or mom is working on the business. And so I started kind of breaking that up a little bit. So it didn't feel like this big chunk. I don't want him to associate work with mom always being gone, because there are different things. And one reason I'm doing this is to make a better future for him as well. And I don't like it when we use our kids as our reason for everything. I would be doing this whether or not I had kids. So that I think is a lot of times an excuse or a pawn off. It's all for you, kid. I mean, that's a lot of pressure for a kid, right? But I really had to change the language and make dedicated effort to examine it myself and say, why am I working so much? Do I love it? Is it a search for significance? Is it wanting to leave my mark? And how can I make that transition and do what my child wants? What's fun for him, even if it's not fun for me? I hate playing Legos. I despise playing dinosaurs, chomp them up and shoot them, boom, boom, boom. And mom's like, I have zero creativity, but I will get my Lego gun and I will like, pew, pew, I will do what he wants. And I'm like, it's 15 minutes, like it's 20 minutes, and he will go and do something else. But I have fulfilled that part of my life, and I'm spending time with him, and I'm doing what he wants, even if it's not what I want to do. I want to spend time with him. I do. It doesn't have to always be about me. It can be about him. And so I tried to change my language and make sure I was dedicating special time to what needed to move forward. Again, glass ball.
That's great. When you guys, when we first started talking, you had mentioned, I don't remember who had mentioned, but it was brought up that businesses and personal are similar as far as the organization and the time management. Do you guys have any examples as far as, putting your children, into a cycle of organizing their own time and productivity? And what age would you say that you'd start that at?
I'm gonna let Erika take it.
This is actually one of the areas I really do love because I've seen tremendous results in a lot of the different things that we've definitely been working on. It is proven that humans thrive with patterns. They thrive with dependability. And so the more we can give consistency and dependability to our children, they will also crave it as well, because it does bring a sense of calmness, right? Nobody really likes living in chaos. It's not enjoyable, but the chaos can be a blessing when it's done with right patterns and flows. And so you give it to them where you can. Establish it early on. Bedtimes are a great time. It's really easy to start doing that. Help them end their day in a peaceful way. I have a particular routine that I've built with, or ritual, if you want to call it, with my kids. Everybody has their different things, but creating those things where they can depend on it really helps them. If a child is asking you for a list, or they want to put things in it, give it to them. Let them do it. If they maybe are a little bit messier and they're not as organized or clean as you are, that's okay. Maybe their brain works a different way. Do they know where their stuff is? Are they still happy? Are they still getting the things done that they need to at whatever age? If they are, then maybe that system is working for them. Don't try to change them. You've got to work with what you have, right? Because we're all different. All of our kids, everybody's different. But then giving them structure in that sense, giving them examples, providing them the consistency, that's key. Really, if you could just do one thing for your kids, is learn the skill of consistency. It's one of the best skills that we can learn as individuals, right? That's what habits are and stuff. But I don't even want to use those words, right? Routines, they frighten people. You're trying to create a natural flow where you accomplish the things that you need to accomplish within your day, and it happens, right? And so you want to do that for your kids. Even as much as in 5 minutes, I'm going to have you turn your devices off in 3 minutes and get your shoes. And then you come back. Hey guys, it's 3 minutes. Turn off your devices. Go ahead and gain that so that you follow up.
Absolutely.
And then it gets to the point of, hey guys, we're leaving. They turn it off. They go get their shoes. Tell them the steps anymore, right? And then that dependence, they start sensing a sense of accomplishment. I think anytime you can do that for a child, help them feel a sense of accomplishment they're doing, even if it's not your necessarily way. Helps too.
And giving them a sense of control too.
I got a lot, but
that schedule and routine gives them a little bit more control over their lives. So I can imagine, when you stop and think about what it's like to be a child and always being told what to do and being ripped away from your tablet and ripped away at the last minute and just on someone else's whim. I hate that. One of our top values is freedom and flexibility. We want that freedom, and our children do too. And by letting them know what time we're going to do, they can then take the initiative to do it themselves. My 6-year-old asked for an alarm clock. He wants to wake himself up. He doesn't want to be dependent on someone else to come in and wake him up and tell him when to get dressed. And so when you recognize that children need that sense of control as well, then it doesn't feel so bad to give to them. Give them a routine, give them discipline, give them organization so that they know what's coming and they can, take ownership of that.
100%. Yeah. This reminds me so much of the time management skills that I've been instilling in my son. So kind of like how Erika was like the aha moment of she's so smart. With Cheryl, I'm kind of having that right now. So I'm so happy.
You're smarter than you think you are. You're more beautiful than you think. You're smarter than you think.
but my whole view was the control thing. And that's why I've always been very time oriented, is because of control. I like to allow people to have their own space and their own free time and their own ability to do the things that they want to do in and amongst an actual plan for the day. So you have to get your stuff done, but then this section is for you to do whatever you want. And I've done that with him since he was a wee baby, little one. And he still to this day, there's chores, there's lists. And then there's a certain time, in the afternoon, after school, after all the things and dinner and all that is his. And he knows that. Mm-hmm. And, same with the weekends. If we're busy over the weekend and we've got a ton of stuff going on, I always make sure that I notate to him what his time is, where his time is, so that he's aware that like, oh, I have to do all this stuff. My mom's making me do dishes, but then he knows that once, that stuff is done, then he has his allotted amount of time. And I think it's control. They need to be able to know that there's a certain part of their day that they have control over, and they're able to make decisions during that part and do what they want.
And that fits for a lot of other things too. Like if you're so busy right now and this just is not your season to spend a lot of time with your children, to let them know that before dinner or after dinner for this 30 minutes, that's going to be your time. So I may not be with you right now, but that's something we can look forward to together. And they know, okay, it's coming. I don't have to hold on to you in the drop-off line, not wanting to let go, because I know when after school, you're going to spend the first 30 minutes with me. I know that's coming. And when we plan our days, it's the same thing. I can work right now because I know I have Netflix time this afternoon. Yep. I know I can work tonight because I know I can have a nap tomorrow, and I don't have to feel guilty about that. So it's the same concept. It works for us and it works for kids as well.
Yeah. I also love this too, because this actually brings up a kind of an argument actually, that my fiance and I got into probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. My son had been out of town with his father and then came back, and then he was with gym friends, all this stuff for a couple of days. So my fiance and I had been doing the dishes, even though my son was still eating here. So still eating here, but then the dishes are just magically in the sink, but just like sitting in the sink. So my fiance had kind of confronted me. He's like, hey, Elijah's been eating here. I think that it's his turn to do dishes. I was like, sure, no problem. So cooking dinner, Elijah comes out, and my fiance was out there. And I just kind of like, my son's super good. Like he listens, he pays attention. He doesn't in any way disrespect me in any way. So just as he's coming in and out, he like got a drink of water or something. I said, hey, bud, when sometime by the end of the day, or no, I said, hey, can you be responsible for doing dishes today? That's what I said. And I don't think we were making dinner. I think we were actually making lunch. And he goes, yeah, sure. So anyways, 2 or 3 hours pass, and my son winds up going to the gym. And my fiance comes in. I was in my bedroom, and he's like, what the heck? Elijah didn't do dishes. And I was like, okay.
Well, today.
And exactly. But the expectation that my fiance had was, if we ask you to do dishes, you do dishes within whatever his imaginary time span is. But see, I didn't raise my son like that. I raised my son with like time. So if I don't say a specific time, which sometimes I do, then he will do it so if I said, hey, do it within the hour, it would have been done within the hour, but there was no definitive time. So if you don't communicate directly in a schedule or a time span, you can't expect people to read your mind. So anyways, we got into this whole thing, and he was like, well, isn't it expected that if your mother asks you to do the dishes, you do the dishes? And I was like, yes, it's expected to do the dishes in the day, which means he has until midnight to do the dishes, technically, because I didn't give him a time span. And we really had to sit for like a good 10 or 15 minutes while he explained his view and I had to explain my view. And, my son's like at the gym, has no idea this is going on.
Yeah, this is a very real issue of expectations. And anytime in organizations we have leadership changes, you've got to recommunicate. And how do we how do we work together? And before I work with any client, we have a slide. This is how we work together, what our expectations are. When we're going to commute this type of information, we'll use email. This type of information, we need a phone call. Do you like phone calls? Do you text? What hours of the day? And end of day means very different things to different people, and close of business means different things to different people. So we have to lay that out. And when someone says, I'd like this by the end of the day, I say, do you mean 5 o'clock or do you mean first thing tomorrow morning? And usually it's first thing tomorrow morning, because I'm not going to do anything with it after here. But, I work until 2:30 in the morning. Does that mean before the end of my day or your day?
Yeah.
Making that very clear is so important. And it avoids, and fortunately y'all had a conversation about it, but that festers very easily. And in organizations, you have whole groups of people that don't like each other and have rifts and communication problems just because they didn't lay out expectations properly and they never talked about it.
Exactly. So I'm appreciating this because it's so true. Language, which is what we've talked about earlier, is so important. That's
Absolutely.
awesome. That's awesome. So I want to talk about joy. And I want to talk about joy because I feel like there's this definitive cloud that's always hovering over us. And I think a lot of it is embedded in us because of social media, of, feeling this pull of making sure we're all having enough joy in our lives. So I kind of want to ask, we kind of already touched on different versions of fun, but for those of us that are looking to just have an overall sense of joy in our life, whether that's skateboarding or working, whatever that is, how would you tell somebody or advise somebody if they were feeling a lack of joy in their life?
I'm happy to kick it off.
Go for it.
One of the things with positive psychology is just this focus on optimism and what optimism is versus positivity. And I see joy as very similar. It's this overarching perspective that you have about life. It's not an in the moment thing. It's a philosophy. It's a belief system. It's something that goes much deeper than I'm happy or I'm positive. It's an overall sense of being. And that's where it comes down to how you organize your life and your philosophy of life and how you view the world. So many times when we get wrapped up in a moment, we're wrapped up in the moment, but not really. We're wrapped up in the future of that moment or the expectations for that moment, how we thought it would be, how it should have been, the impact that this will have in the future. Take a small example. When my kids are being unruly and I'm disciplining them, and I think if I get this wrong, they're going to be terrible children. They're going to be drug dealers. I'm going to have to deal with addiction, and they're going to be bullies in school. How I thought I would parent. I never thought I would yell at my kids. Why am I spanking him? Why did I grab his? All of these things, right, that impact how we feel about that moment versus living truly in the moment and having a sense of gratitude for all the pieces of that moment and expectations about that. So I talk to a lot of people about base level expectations. So sometimes when my kids get crazy and I get upset about that, or someone in my household gets upset about that, I have to say, remember, this is baseline. This is standard. This is the expectation for a 4-year-old child, right? Until we teach them and educate them and help them understand it. So we don't have to get upset about that. This is, but when I get super upset, it's because I think he should be behaving differently, or I think that this means something like, oh, who influenced him, or why is this actually you? And we're focused on all these other things besides the moment. But when we think about one of the organizational examples, you start a new job and HR is never on top of it, right? You don't have a computer. You don't know what you're supposed to do. You don't have your expectations right. My manager was on vacation when I started. I could get really upset about that because, God, why didn't they have this right? It's going to impact how I perform. Or it's like, this is base level for starting a new job, right? I can just be in the moment knowing that this is just standard for life. And I love that that application, I use that a lot. This is base level. This is standard. Life is hard. Having kids is hard. Starting a business is hard. People are going to say no when you ask them a question you want them to say yes to. No need to get really upset about that. But how can I appreciate the fact that I'm here on this podcast with you? How can I appreciate the fact that I'm speaking to someone about my business? How can I appreciate the fact that I'm in this house and I have these children, unruly as they are, but how can I appreciate the opportunity to try again tomorrow? And living in that place of gratitude and respect and appreciation for what I have right now without the worry for the future or fears and expectations from the past, but truly be in this moment. If you were gone tomorrow morning, would this matter? Did you appreciate this moment and live in it fully? And I can preach this all day long, and I tell you, I don't live this way. Erika, this is why it's hard to talk to people that know you very well, because it's like, I saw you yesterday and you were pretty pissy. I'm working on it, right? We're all working on it, but that's how I recenter myself and say, how do I appreciate this moment and not get so fogged up with everything else around me? Because this moment is fleeting. It's going to be gone. And those worries that you had are going to be gone. Don't live in the future and don't watch from the past, but live in the moment.
Anything to add, Miss Erika?
I love everything that Dr. C says. I want to give a couple practical tips so you can kind of take those philosophies and really utilize it in your life, because we like to be tactical too, right? So we want to understand it up here, but we want to know how to apply it to our lives. Definitely understanding and knowing your vocations, right? Knowing what your intentions and your expectations are. What is the culture that you're trying to build in those, so that your focus really is on you, that you're utilizing a correct comparison model. Many times why we don't feel joy or any of those other things is because we're using comparison in the wrong way. Comparison can be a good thing. If you know what your life season profile is, you can look at somebody else or another situation that's similar. You can go, okay, what can I learn? What can I garner from their experience, because we're in a similar space? But if you're comparing to somebody who's way off here, like if I'm looking at my life and comparing it to a woman who has one child, who has 2 full-time streams of income coming in because they have established careers that, at 40 something, you would think, you're right? If I was doing that and then judging my entire life, how would I ever feel joy? Like, that's impossible. And positivity quotes and telling yourself to be positive or think happy thoughts ain't going to cut it. It's just not going to happen, right? You cannot quote and meme yourself into feeling these things. You have to have practical ways. So another way to judge something, how you're going to react, is this going to matter 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years? Now start judging. If it's not going to matter 5 seconds from now, I'm definitely not allowing it to change my energy. 5 minutes, not changing my energy. 5 hours, maybe my child doing something pretty severe might change my attitude and my level of joy for the next 5 hours. So I'm going to, choose what tone I'm using, right? It starts making us more aware of what's happening, right? As we start really acknowledging, like Cheryl said, we acknowledging our real circumstances, looking at what's going on around us. Is this baseline? Like, was I really expecting the clouds, but I should have been expecting, like, we're just barely have dirt here, y'all. Like, where am I in this? And how much of this lack of joy did I bring on myself? Really, honestly. And then what am I not being grateful for? Because there is always something to be grateful for. Always.
I love that.
And I'd love to attach.
Did you wake up breathing today? Be grateful.
I like to add 2 more things. Sorry, Erika, you cut out. I thought you were finished. One thing is the ABC model. So when something happens and then there's a consequence, there's something in between that is a belief. And so many times we assign meaning to things that happen and we let that rob us of joy. But when you stop and say, what am I most upset about? Is it the thing that happened? Is it the consequence, or is it what I think they meant by that? And that's where I get like looking into the future or the expectations from the past. What do I think they meant by that, and what's the meaning attributed to it, and that robs me of joy all the time. And then the other thing is, when you're focused on optimism versus the negativity side of that and living in a state of joy, is to break things down into smaller pieces. We get so generic and broad, and we think, oh, this is all encompassing, and we start that downward spiral. But when we stop it and break it down and say, I'm not a terrible, horrific person. I snapped at my kid one time, and look at the reasons why. I'm overwhelmed, overburdened. I asked him 3 times, but I can be better at this, and I'll try again tomorrow. But that's one time. Let's not blow this out of proportion. And as women, we blow things out of proportion, and then we apply the generic bubble. Like, it just starts expanding. If I yelled at him now, then he's gonna hate me, and it's gonna be. I always say I'm gonna be the source of his therapy when he's 30, regardless. You're always going to point back as whatever you do. So really focus on getting better. And that's where better over perfect comes in. We get stuck in perfection all the time. But if we can focus on just, I can be better at that, it takes you out of that downward spiral and really helps you say, okay, let's get back into the moment. Don't let others steal your joy by applying unnecessary meaning to a comment when they cut you off, all of these things that we're like, oh, they're a jerk, and this world would be better without them, and all of these things that we just kind of keep going, like, they're late for work, give them a break. I cut people off all the time. I hope I'm not a terrible person.
For sure.
I haven't been driving in a while, but
well, listen, you guys I feel like we could just go on forever. There's just so much goodness here. But I want to ask, there's so much. There's so much here that you guys have going on that's so amazing. I kind of want to ask, if somebody's watching this live right now, or on the replay, in general, what are you offering to us? Like, what could we go to you for, one, and then what could we do to help you?
Well, you can come to us to create manageability and margin in your life so that you can exit overwhelm and enter your piece of purpose, no matter what that is in your life. That is our specialty. We can teach it to one-on-one. We can do it in a group format. We can do it to your organization or small business. We have adapted that presentation based on who the audience is. And so that's really what we're passionate about, is really helping you engage in your life in a better way. And the only way we really can engage is to be able to manage it and create that margin of time so that we can do it, right? And so that's definitely what we aspire to do as much as possible. I think I talk about it every single day to every person I talk to. It's just become part of every aspect of our life. Is just, well, okay, what's the problem that you're facing? And let us help you feel like it's not overwhelming you. From the simple thing of my baby's crying all the time and I don't know how to take a shower, to I don't know how to manage this in my business or create the time. It just is, it's interesting that it works for all the levels. I love that. But that is definitely what we've been working on. We just actually presented the Well-Rounded Foundation at Texas A&M last week.
Wow.
From graduate students down to freshmen, which was an extraordinary experience. I'm so honored and humbled at the same time. So that is the one thing. How can you help us? We have a few things, but I know I would talk about the book. We talked about it on your previous podcast. Mm-hmm. That's what I would bring up right now. We did write a book that we're passionate about. It's our cause, but not our business. But I know Cheryl has a different ask, so I'm gonna let her actually do what we would ask from, because we have to leave something for her to talk about.
Thank you. So I would ask that you join us in our community. So on Instagram at the.corner with an HER.office, also on Facebook, and then join the Better Over Perfect community, also better.over.perfect. We like the dots in there, makes it very clear. And then we also have a Facebook group, The Better Method, where we really dig in. We test out some of our material. We go a little bit deeper into those topics and conversations that we have. Don't forget the dots in between. That might be the way to pick it up. So that's where we're going to test a lot of material. But I would highly encourage you to also join our newsletter at thecorneroffice.com. That's where we are about to do some serious marketing. Ladies, we have the most amazing things coming. And I would like if Erika gives me a nod to give you some of the inside scoops as to what you're doing, since it's super secret. But we're about to do some market research to really work out our feasibility, but we have a corner office location in Ohio. We're about to start one in Bryan College Station. And then we have some amazing mobile resources that are going to transform the way we work, live, and play. So I don't know how much I can say or should say. We're patent pending in a few areas. So, I mean, it's that exciting and that real. But I'm also going to let you in on another little secret. When you think about work, live, and play, we are going to be creating communities where women can work, live, and play together, where childcare is provided. It is available in cheaper housing, so you can get off your feet, specifically designed for single women. And the corner office is going to be there. Just everything that you need to create margin in your life while also getting back on your feet and balancing out this privilege. We're trying to make a place where all women, regardless of who you are, how much money you have, you can come together and learn from each other and community with each other and build your business. So super exciting. And we want you to be a part of it. And being a part of our communities allows you to answer some of those market questionnaires that we're going to be having as well.
Absolutely phenomenal. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really exciting. We are so excited.
True transformation.
I mean, even so, our first location here in Ohio, we're officially open to the public starting the beginning of November, where you can come and work and your child can be supervised and playing. So it's really kind of thinking through how can we do this life and do it together, because it wasn't built for that really. Right. I mean, how do we provide that adoption and flexibility so that we can? I mean, there was times in my life where I couldn't even go do a job interview because I couldn't find somebody to come and watch my 4 kids.
That's going to
change. That was my place of I could not go get a physical job because I could not get even the childcare to get to the interview, much less could I afford the childcare once I got that job, right? And then now how am I supposed to get, like, all of these things that we're faced with, like, now how do I get them picked up from school and all of this stuff? We have come up with actual solutions and viable solutions that work. And so we are so excited to be bringing it. Now we're officially national. I mean, we have 2 locations officially, so Ohio and Texas. And we want every woman and primary parent to be a part of this. And you can get on the ground floor. Like, now's the time.
Yes.
Amazing.
Well, that is absolutely fantastic. I have the website up here for anyone who's watching live or on the replay. It's www.thecorneroffice.com. And so much goodness. So much goodness. I appreciate everything that you guys stand for and everything that you guys are doing. Closing thoughts before we wrap up here.
Yeah, I would like to.
Well, if anybody's watching live, if anybody's watching live and they have questions, I would love to see if anybody has questions while Cheryl's doing her. If there's any questions, I'll handle questions.
Yeah, I would just like to encourage women to join our community and to remember that when we encourage each other, we lift up all women. And that's one of the issues that we've been having as a gender is we spend a lot of time stepping on each other and pushing each other out of the way so that we can connect with the majority group. And this is not uncommon across minority groups. And so through raising women, we're also raising minority groups across the board, those with disabilities, those of different races and ethnicities. And when we band together, we're so much stronger. And so that's what we are trying to do, is to try to quit this intergroup rivalry to where we don't need to attach ourselves to the majority group in order to receive some of those privileges. We are strong enough together that we can raise each other up. Because when we climb that ladder, we may be getting closer, but we're pushing others down. And that's making it harder for future generations, for our friends, for our sisters, for our coworkers. And so we're going to go up together. It might be a little bit slower on an individual level, but as a whole, we're making real progress. And that's what this is all about. And our communities, think about childcare in front of your hospital or your doctor's office so that you can go and get your health care properly. Grandmas that are raising their children, minority groups that don't have access to childcare, they're the ones that are really suffering in this new society, in this world that we're creating. Those that can't get to work because they don't have proper childcare. Now businesses are suffering because their primary workforce, working moms, are unable to get to work. So we're going to impact not only women as a whole, but the entire basis for our economy. And this is real and this is impactful and it's happening right now. Hope you want to be a part of it.
I love that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been absolutely fantastic. I certainly hope to have, both the company's projects that you guys are working on close, to our platform here at Her Version. You basically encompass everything that we stand for as far as helping women, educating women, and all the goodness that goes along with that. So I'm so happy to have you guys here along for the ride and speaking openly about some of these issues that we deal with as females right now in 2021. Mm-hmm. So anything you want to end with, Erika, before I close up?
Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it. We definitely love speaking to women on a lot of different topics and want to be an asset to what you're doing for sure, Sabrina, because we love what you're doing. Yes. Charlotte, thanks for chiming in. She says, I love what you ladies are doing. She also said earlier, using comparison in a good way. I like that. Yeah, all of these things. Even negativity can be used in a good thing, right? There is no such thing as a good word or a bad word. They're just words, right? It's how we use them. It's how we apply it to our life. And so we're just going to take what, other people have used for success, apply it to our life and build up together instead of separating each other apart. Because that's where true success happens. Exactly. And you find that joy in what you determine is successful, not what somebody else determined is your definition of success. So it really just changes the language we use. It changes how we define our lives. It changes how we live our lives. And that's what we really want to do for other people because it's happened for us. So thanks for having us.
Of course. I believe in building community. So that's what we're doing here. And I love that you guys are here and helping and educating and all that goodness. And I hope to have you guys on again in the future and to keep us updated on all the new awesome things that you guys are creating over there in your universe. So I am going to wrap up. Thank you for those of you that are still watching live. We appreciate your listening ear. If you know of anyone that this topic resonates with, please share. And you never know what people are dealing with in their little world. So something like this popping up on their feed could mean the world to them. So thank you so much for joining us here on Her Version. If you have an amazing story to share of struggle to triumph, be sure to reach out to me here or at herversion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. Do something awesome today. Much love.